Well, hello everybody, welcome back to a whole new week here on the channel. Today, before we go take a look at Troll's Garden, because it's a Troll's Garden Tuesday, we're going to deal with a couple of items on the honeydew list, and that's probably for the best, and you're about to see why. So I definitely need to clean as much of this gutter as I can reach. Thankfully, due to the install gig, I have an incredibly long ladder, and I should be able to get to most of that. But the vast majority of the rain that is being collected by this big, beautiful tin roof is overflowing because it can't get down the drain at the end. I mean, luckily for us, that tote is full. We had a great storm last night, but still need to clean the gutters. Also, while we're up here, we need to get measurements to replace the surface of this horrible roof. Wave to the smiling public there. I think I actually read about complaints from this roofing job when we were back in BC. Looking at the various layers here, I definitely think if it's not the actual roof complained about, it's built in a similar fashion. But you get what you pay for, and we knew this house was going to need some loving and some improvements. So, need to get my measurements today so we can put some white, which is apparently what that color is, tin up here, cover up this eyesore, which in turn means I'm allowed to cut down all of those trees. So it's worth it to everyone to work on that honeydew list. Right, honey?
Right, honey.
Alright, well that takes care of today's portion of the honeydew list. The ladder's only made it halfway there because the gutter and the porch are kind of sketchy. I want to wait until the boy's up here because he's the lightest, so he can go up the ladder, and I'm the heaviest, we'll call it most solid, so I can stay down at the bottom of the ladder and make sure everything stays fairly safe while we clean the rest of that gutter out. But we got those measurements. I'm really looking forward to fixing up that crappy looking roof, because as I said up there, that means I can finally take down this last row of trees, which puts peppers where the field of tomatoes is this year. That could all be peppers, but I gotta get rid of those trees. Some of those trees are also currently blocking Brother Troll's garden here. I'd have to say things are looking pretty solid in what we've got growing on here, and I'm kind of liking expanding it a little bit every week. So I think this week we may add a cabbage, because I still have cabbages unplanted, and I may even bring the mouse melons over because at least their container's black, so it kind of blends right in. Last week, while we were exploring Troll's Garden, we were looking at this pepper in particular, which is showing even more signs of flower development, so that is fantastic. If you recall though, this Sugar Rush cream last week was very, very pale. Oh, that wind. Anyway, sorry about the wind, can't hold the wind, you know. This was really, really pale last week, so we made a new batch of nutrients for everything, and I think it's really, really paying off in the case of this particular pepper. I see obvious growth since last Tuesday. There's definite flower development in here, so that's good. Now that said, we had, you know, as I mentioned the other day, we get two types of rain here. It's either a couple of sprinkles that don't do jack squat, or it's a torrential downpour. So last night was a torrential downpour. We'll take a look at what that did for my rain collection on Thursday, because we have a little bit more rain expected. But last week we put in our overflow holes, which means these guys didn't really get flooded out by the experience. At worst, the cups collected a little bit, it soaked through, it drained through to the basins, and, you know, drained out. So my nutrients are probably somewhat, if not massively, diluted by that, but not to the point that they were, and the air roots should be doing better. So I think we're getting somewhere with this basic concept. While I'm squatting down here, we'll take a look at the red pear tomato. Lots and lots of growth on here. It is loving this particular position. Most of the tomatoes seem to be really loving these Root Pro pouches, so great. I was checking out their website the other day. I was going to say yesterday, but I'm not quite sure. Apparently they've got raised bed gardens and stuff. I don't know, I'd like to let my roots go all the way down in that case, but who knows, if you need to throw up a garden really quickly, it might be ideal. Anyway, this thing has flower clusters all over it, and last Sunday we got an idea looking at the one out in the Grove of what these are going to look like green. I don't see any at the moment, but they will definitely be coming with time. Thyme, one of the few herbs I'm not growing here. Might be a little bit too late to start that, but I should try some of those anyway. We got the basil going here. The dark opal basil looks fantastic, although it does kind of look like that might be going to flower. So forget that. I want savory leaves from most of these. Seeds from one though. So I guess we'll let this one in the back. Do that. For the rest of them, we're going to just nip these tops off right now. Nip it in the bud, as it were. Let that bush out a little bit. I'm quite curious to see how much more that can expand. That'll be nice. The rosemary up here. A very happy plant. I just like petting this thing for the way it smells. Oh, glorious. And it's so early in the season, I'm really excited to see what kind of bush potential this thing's got, because it was already established when it came out here. So yeah, I have a very short gardening season here, but if I tweak it and, you know, bend the rules to my advantage, I can get 2-3 seasons out of some of these plants. Can't wait till I've got a really nice greenhouse set up. Even a basic greenhouse setup is gonna advance my garden quite a bit. Look at this beautiful sage. We've still got massive variation going on in the styles of leaf growth, but I don't care. Those leaves are growing so much. Take whatever shape you want. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful, delightful. Coffee can crimson red here. Looking almost as abundant as the El Oro is out front. Looks like we'll probably be taking a look at the vast majority of the peppers on Friday. So if that's something you're interested in, you'll want to make sure, what do they say, hit the bell, make sure you'll get the notifications of the various things that get up on my channel, blah blah blah. Or if you sub and you get to know me, you'll realize around 6-ish Central Time I probably put up a video every day but Monday. Anyway, back to what's growing on. The Manitoba variety tomato here. This thing is beautiful. Did a really good job of cloning the top for me as I waited out my far too early start. Ended up gifting a few Manitoba varieties from that cloning experience. As we can see, there are lots of clusters on here. We've already got that one tomato still happily forming in the back. I think that's going to be very productive. So that is really exciting. This whole garden is fascinating. Sliding down, we've got the still recovering ahi lemon drop, but really she looks better every day. And while I doubt there will be any production on here, there may be the opportunity to, I don't know, dip it in some sort of neem oil solution before it comes back inside into another, maybe a larger reservoir type situation. I don't know, I really like those tote setups Rev's got going in the greenhouse. So I might do something like that for these in the dungeon over the winter. I don't know. But I know it is going to be really hard for me to part with these. I may have no choice with the so-called super chili, but even it is looking a little bit better in some places since I gave them nutrients. Just going to have to wait it out. 3 out of 4 ain't bad, and this Sugar Rush is looking fabulous. So I'm prepared to basically let it all ride on the Sugar Rush and the Crimson Red and call it productive enough. Sure, that's only 50% of the peppers actively producing for me that are being grown in that fashion, but if you compare that to percentage in the soil, it's better than that. And if you compare it to previous year's gardening attempts for me, well, significantly better than that. Even this year, with all of those seeds that I planted and all of those starts that I had, I've only got 19 surviving pepper plants in the soil over there and like 7 going up the driveway. So if it wasn't all an educational experience, that would almost be a little bit embarrassing. Anyway, I'm going to plant up a cabbage to add to Troll's garden today. There are a bunch more tomatoes in there, but that just doesn't seem appropriate. And like I said earlier, I think I'm going to move the mouse melon over. So depending on what's going on with the weather, we'll be rescuing one or both of these cabbages today. I don't think both will go into Troll's garden though. Probably just put the other bucket over with the rest of the cabbages and brassicas and such. But we'll definitely start with this one. Poor thing. Some of you may recall my strip mining operation here where we're going to get the cabbage's soil. I love that ice auger, my favorite garden tool. So obviously that thing is a very effective drill, but you know what you don't generally stop and think about is that if you turn it on its side, it becomes like a KitchenAid mixer for the soil. So that is beautifully loose now, good to go. Couple of quick scoops from the shovel, nice and loose and easy to work with at the moment. And just like that, this cabbage has a significantly nicer home. And this is one of the ones that I drilled the holes in, so it won't be flooding. Well, not long term anyway. Might get a little bit during the downpours, but otherwise it will drain through. Looks like I got time to do the second cabbage too. Sweet. Alright, so we're going to see if the weather holds for me to do a few more of those lemon boys for the grove as well. I don't think we're going to get any more updates along the way here though, because the wind is just getting a little more frequent. I hate the sound when editing, so alright, we'll check back though when I'm done. So in the wind, as the weather worsens, apparently the storm warning is over all of Manitoba now. Anyway, here is our new cabbage for Troll's garden. We've got the mouse melons in the back. I did a little bit of a wiggle jiggle. Sage is up top now. I might move it forward just a little bit because of the impending wind and rain. But otherwise, still coming along kind of nicely. It's an interesting sort of thing. I mean, sure, it started off as kind of a giggle between friends, but this is really developing into a garden idea I enjoy. So the other cabbage ended up planted between the potato-tomato bed and the leftover bed, which is kind of appropriate. Plus, that is the nicest cabbage on the property, so I put it here because I can't mow here, whereas it turns out I can mow there, so yes. And as for the tomatoes, I did get a few of those in, and we just kind of blended those tomatoes into what was already growing on up front here. So basically everything in the front of these rows in these black buckets is from those squishy lemon boys that were hanging in the rafters in the dungeon all winter long and did actually produce. It's very, very interesting. They seem to do much better as a fermented seed than a dried seed. Good to know, really. All right, everybody. Well, I do ask you to forgive the dirty face and sweaty brow, but been working out here. The sun, it's hot, it's muggy, but you know there's a storm coming, so I'm gonna wrap it up there. I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be down in the dungeon where the weather is somewhat irrelevant, taking a look at what's growing on in the aquaponic garden. So I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. Please leave me your comments down below, and I don't know, what shall we make today's question? Today's question is, in Troll's garden, should I also add a subsection that is the Simon and Garfunkel area? Parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme. Should I plant the required herbs or just leave it be? I guess that's today's question. I will see you guys tomorrow.